The Shepnaz Podcast begins now.
Welcome to the Shepnaz Podcast. I'm Joe, and I'm your host today. And today I have Pastor Brett in with me, and we're continuing our Advent devotionals. And we're looking again at love. Yesterday we were talking with Pastor Nick, and today we're going to continue that conversation. And it's based off of a devotional book called Changed in the Waiting. And if you're interested in that, there are devotions for every day. We're just taking a couple of them here and there. But it is called, go to thefoundrypublishing.com and you can find that. It's available in ebook versions. So welcome in, Brett.
Thank you, Joe. It's good to be here. Happy Friday, everybody.
Yeah, as we were just getting ready to record, we were noticing the fact that if you were to look up Advent calendars as far as weeks and how they're celebrated by the church, there seems to be no consistency in how that happens.
Yeah.
And even some churches will change it up from year to year. They'll say like the first week is hope, the second week is joy or peace or love, and we get them all in there, but not necessarily in the same order all the time. And in this particular devotional book, they went hope and then love. So that's what we're talking about today. And also, as we mentioned, today is a big day because we're starting when everything changed.
That's right, tonight. Yeah.
There has been a lot of preparation made for that. We're very excited about it. So if you haven't yet, take a look online. I can't tell you because I can't tell you what the future is, but I am sure that there are still some spots available, but I don't know what it looks like either Friday or Saturday. So take a look at shepnaz.org and click on the banner for when everything changed, and you can figure out where there's still some spots where you can get in there. So, yeah. Brett, what you have for us for the devotional today?
All right. Well, thanks again for having me, Joe. It's always fun to be here.
Of course.
So our devotional for today is called His Unfailing Love. And the scripture that's a part of today's devotional comes from Psalms chapter 107. So let me read this for us today. It's verses 1 through 3, and then 8 and 9. Here's what it says. Give thanks to the Lord, for He is good. His love endures forever. Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. Those He redeemed from the hand of the foe, those He gathered from the lands, from east and west, from north and south. Let them give thanks to the Lord for His unfailing love and His wonderful deeds for mankind. For He satisfies the thirsty and fills the hungry with good things. So this is our devotional passage for today, Joe. And like you were saying beforehand, right now we have elected via the book to go with hope for this week.
Love.
Not hope,
yeah.
love. See, I got all mixed
That's
up.
That's all right.
With love. And this devotional is really all about recognizing testimonies and stories of what God's love has done in our lives. And it kind of, the author here, he kind of invites us into seeking out these stories of people that we know, and even in this kind of cool way, like looking into and tapping into the heritage that we have, and that maybe your faith story intersects with somebody else's, or maybe God's love and the work that it has done in someone's life impacted the way that you see God's love in your life. And so he kind of invites us into looking around and asking around and recognizing the fact that all of the brothers and sisters of the body have a story, and God's love has impacted them in some way and changed something in their life for sure. And a lot of the times we kind of just carry on without asking to hear those stories. And I think that we're really missing out on something there. And it's kind of a cool thing about how it really connects us to one another in our faith, and kind of helps you know someone better when you know what God has done in their life, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes when we encounter people, we're rubbing shoulders with people at church, and we don't know all the things that God has done in their life.
For sure.
Now, not to make this a whole commercial about the Christmas program, but that's one of the things that we really wanted to highlight in when everything changed, was the idea that this Christmas story, which everyone that was originally involved in the Christmas story was excited about it and told everybody. We think about the shepherds, after they saw Jesus, went out and they told everybody that they encountered the wonderful things that they had seen. I think about Ananias and Simeon that were at the temple after, his eighth day. And as soon as they saw him, Ananias is like, they both, Anna and Simeon, were so excited to see him and to be able to proclaim to people like, this is the best thing that's ever happened. And yet that's still happening in people's lives today. But sometimes in our busyness and just kind of our surface relationships, we don't get to hear all those stories and how God has really just done miraculous things and continues to do miraculous things in people's lives.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Joe. Personally, I love stories. I love storybooks. I love reading, and I really love movies. And just like you're saying, Joe, it's really easy for us to kind of go about our lives or kind of do this church thing, and we can tell our own stories and we recognize all the things that God has done in our lives. But it's also easy to view our lives as the movie that we're in, and the people that we kind of, like you said, brush shoulders with are like side characters or what have you. And it's easy to not think about what happens when they're not around you, right? But they have their own stories themselves, their own movies, and there's so much more context to it. And like I was saying, it kind of establishes a new level of friendship when you kind of get to hear those stories and helps you understand your brothers and sisters. But also, I think it's a really humbling thing, and it can also just be such a huge encouragement, which is part of what I think the devotional today yielded to me, this encouragement to pursue and seek out these stories, because like we were saying, it's so easy just to never hear them, but they can be such a source of encouragement to us when we get to hear the wonderful things that God has done in a real and tangible way with people that we literally know and interact with on a regular basis.
Experience Christmas like never before with Shepherd Church of the Nazarene at 425 South Hamilton Road in Gahanna, as we share original music, drama, and testimony entitled When Everything Changed. That's this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. This event is free, but seats are limited. Find times and sign-ups by clicking on the When Everything Changed banner at shepnaz.org. That's shepnaz.org. We can't wait to see you.
When I met him, everything changed.
The insight that you just pulled out, I think, is really important. That so many times we encourage people, tell your story, tell your story, tell your story. And we're like, yeah, share your testimony. But you just took it from a different perspective. You said, seek out someone else's story. Go to someone else and say, tell me your story. And hear from them what their story is. I think maybe that would help promote the kind of communication that we're talking about here. Is not always just you going around saying, hey, you want to hear my story? But for us to care enough about the people around us to reach out and say, tell me your story. How did you get here?
Yeah.
How did this happen? How did this work for you? I know how it worked for me. And maybe in the process of doing that, maybe it doesn't even have to initiate with a believer. Like when I'm thinking of how Jesus interacted with the lost, when it was somebody that needed healing, his first question is, do you want to be healed? He wanted to hear what was going on in their head. And well, yeah, okay. Well, I can act on that because you've told me what you want.
Yeah.
And when he was interacting with the woman at the well, it was like, can you give me a drink? And that was invoking a response from her.
He invited her into sharing her story with the whole, where's your husband and everything like that. I think you're totally right, Joe. I think that the love of Christ, which is, again, kind of what we're going for and talking about this week, is as much like a listening love as it is a proclaiming love. Even in an evangelical or an evangelistic aspect, kind of like what you were saying there. Like when you have something good, amazing happen in your life, you're naturally going to want to tell people. And if it's coming from somewhere, i.e. God, if it's coming from God, you're going to want to say like, listen, this wonderful, wonderful God has done some wonderful things in me, and I have to tell you because I care about you, and that's part of the love. But just like you were saying, it's also like I need to hear your story, and I think that's something that we need to be really intentional about, speaking personally, but just like maybe others too. The intention of seeking to listen and just be present with people and hear their story, because a lot of the time that's where a faith story can begin, just in a listening and allowing people to speak.
And it doesn't always have to be in an environment where we sit down and say, okay, I'm going to interview you. Tell me your story. It could be something as simple as you're out at a restaurant and the server comes up to the table and you say, boy, I bet you guys are really busy this time of season. How you doing?
Yeah.
And for just that one moment that they're recognized as a person, I've seen so many times where they will immediately drop their guard. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, finally, a friendly voice. Somebody that actually would recognize me as a person, somebody that actually would even give thought to the fact that I have things going on and I have a life. And there was one time that Susan and I did that. And of course, after the fact, I wondered if it was a mistake because, the server kind of just sat down beside us and started sharing a longer story. But it was great that they felt comfortable in doing so. I was taken aback a little bit, to be completely honest, but it has stuck with me. That's been a while ago that happened. But the moment that they realized, here's somebody that might actually listen to what I have to say. So it is a different kind of way for us to show love. Yeah,
100%, Joe. I had a teacher at MNU who was an ethics teacher, and he kind of told that he did this, kind of encouraged us to do it too. But he talked about how when he has a waiter or waitress at a restaurant, he uses their name as much as possible. And that was kind of like a eye-opening, kind of revealing thing to me, because a lot of the times when you sit down, you got the menu, you're ready to order, and they introduce themselves and you're not even listening because a lot of the time you might not need to ask them anything. And so it might not necessarily be quote unquote relevant to you, but just to, like you're saying, just to stop and acknowledge them. I believe that having somebody that knows your name, and that's relevant to church, but anywhere really, is an empowering thing because it gives you a sense of identity. And so when you totally overlook or neglect to even acknowledge a person's name, then it can be kind of like dehumanizing and really just like their means to an end. But to identify that person as an end and a beloved child themselves is definitely something that we need to practice regularly, and something we should want to do too.
Yeah. I mean, imagine being brave enough to be in line at Target because it's so busy during Christmas time, and you get up to the cash register, and instead of going through the self-checkout, you choose to go through the one that's being staffed so that you would have the opportunity to say, hey, I know this is probably a really busy time for you guys. Is there anything I could pray for you about? And imagine how that might take somebody off guard and just give an opportunity for God to do something in that moment.
Definitely.
All right. Well, anything else you'd like to share as we close up today?
Nope. I guess just a last encouragement to seek out to hear the stories. Ask people what God has done in their lives, whether it's somebody that you kind of casually know or even a family member you haven't heard the whole story about. So seek those out today, and I hope that you'll find encouragement in them.
And one last thing, you still have Wonder going on Wednesdays. So talk about that a little bit. Are you doing it the Wednesday before Christmas, then not Christmas? And how's that schedule going to be? So
for December, Wonder with Emmanuel is the first 3 Wednesdays of December, which is 4, 11, and 18, because Christmas is the 4th Wednesday. So the first 3 Wednesdays we're having Wonder with Emmanuel. So we have one more, the 18th, coming up next week. So definitely come out to that. We're talking about God with us. It's it's a really exciting and fun time in the middle of a wonderful and joyful season of Advent. So,
And then are you taking a couple weeks off and coming back after New Year, or how's that working?
I don't know yet, Joe. I got to figure that out. It's definitely coming back after the New Year. We're going to see how things go over these next few weeks and what it'll look like then, but it'll definitely be coming back probably soon.
All right. Well, stay tuned for that. And we hope that you'll be encouraged by us talking about ways that we can share the love of Christ. Maybe it's not always talking, maybe it's listening and showing love that way. We hope that you would be able to share this message with some of your friends and family, and maybe even invite them to come out to When Everything Changed this weekend. Go to shepnaz.org and click on that banner to be able to make sure that you can get a seat. Also, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. For Pastor Brett, I'm Joe. Have a great day. This podcast is a production of the Shepherd Church of the Nazarene, Gahanna, Ohio. Email to podcast@shepnaz.org and let us know what you think.